Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 35 of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Landy Pavlon, alongside with my colleague, Justin Hebert. For tonight, we have a special guest, is Arca driver, Ronnie Osmer. He's nice enough to join the show. So, thank you for being our first guest since September. Of course, going back to the weekend after the Vegas Cup race, we brought in Armand Vezina and Diego Gonzalez, going in our in-depth car culture episode back in episode, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we got another guest now, so without further ado, let's get things started with really only key race weekend of the past 2 days, having the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So we'll get started on the F1 finale of the 2019 World Championship. Lewis Hamilton put the cherry on top, quite literally, with his 84th career victory, 11th of the season, and led every lap of the race, a perfect race from start to finish, over Max Verstappen, who scored his 31st career podium and 9th of the season from second on the grid, and Charles Leclerc, who scored his 10th podium of the season and career.
Yep.
Championship was clinched, as well as the Constructors' title, long before the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix weekend even started.
Yeah.
They really, like, Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes deserve a lot of credit from what they did this year. And they have a bright future ahead, depending on their contract extension, which is going to be 2021. But for the meantime, they have a shot to actually tie Michael Schumacher for the most championships of all time with that big number 7.
And the wins, too, because Michael Schumacher only has 91, 84, and 7 away.
Yeah, it's coming closer every year.
Yeah, he's definitely going to beat it, though, at the pace Mercedes is.
But yeah, I think, to be honest, like, Lewis Hamilton he's in his prime. He's a driver, like I say about Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, in their prime, or Kevin Harvick, in their prime from the start of the career to present day. He could be a seasoned veteran. His talent's still up to par. He hasn't really slipped off it. But let's go through the results here. We had Bottas 4th, who started last after a grid penalty due to an engine infraction. Then Sebastian Vettel 5th after a 4th place starting spot. Then Albon was the last car in the lead lap at 6th. And then we go down the points with Perez, Norris, Kvyat, and Carlos Sainz Jr. And the guys who finished outside the points was Danny Ricciardo, Nico Hülkenberg in his final race with Renault, Kimi Räikkönen, Kevin Magnussen, Romain Grosjean. So another disastrous day for Haas. Giovinazzi, George Russell, Pierre Gasly, after lap 1 contact with the Racing Point machines. Robert Kubica in his final race with Williams finished 19th. And the only car retired from the race with the power failure was Lance Stroll, 20th.
It was actually brakes. They corrected it to brakes, so yeah, it was brake issue. But they had an issue.
And without further ado, here's the 2019 F1 World Championship drivers' final standings for 2019. Lewis Hamilton by far with 11 wins, 17 podiums, and 413 golden points. Came through the next level with that 6th championship over Valtteri Bottas, who scored 4 wins and 15 podiums, 2 less than his Mercedes counterpart. And then Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Sebastian Vettel. Carlos Sainz Jr. got 6 over 1 point over Gasly.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a close fight to the end there.
Yep, they were really close.
And then let's move on and just to run down here. So Albon finished 8th. And then the fight for 9th in the championship was pretty close. Ricciardo, 2 points over Perez, who finished 10th. And then we moved downwards. Lando Norris, Kimi Räikkönen, Nico Hülkenberg, Danny Kvyat actually tied for the 14th spot on the championship standings with 37 points each. Lance Stroll, 1 point over Kevin Magnussen. Giovinazzi 17th, while Grosjean scored only 8 points. And then the two Williams of Kubica, who scored the lone point for the team all year long over George Russell, the 2018 F2 champion, finished 20th, the only driver no points this year.
Yeah.
And then the final standings for the World Constructors Championship was clearly Mercedes over Ferrari, Red Bull Racing Honda, and the McLaren Renault. Renault finished 5th over Scuderia Toro Rosso. And then Racing Point finished 7th over Alfa Romeo in 8th. Haas finished 9th, scored 28 points this year. And Williams with 1 sole point this season. The engine champion was Mercedes, and the pole trophy champion was Charles Leclerc.
Because, he had more poles.
So let's talk about F1.
That was
2019 is finally in the books.
Yep. And I just realized it's the first time in a while since only one driver has not scored points in the season. Because last year, Sergei Sirotkin, which drove for Williams, he got 1 point. But this year, only one driver at Williams got a point at Germany, which a lot of rain in that race. But it was quite interesting this season. And now Robert Kubica, he left, and people thought Hülkenberg was going to take his seat, which no, Nicholas Latifi, Formula 2 driver, he'll be running for Williams. So Hülkenberg's, we don't know where he'll go. If he'll leave, we don't know if
Could he go to IndyCar? That's always a question looming around. A lot of F1 drivers who don't really make it through the teams usually come to the United States and race in the Indy cars.
Yeah.
Or they go to Formula E or endurance racing. Who knows?
Yeah, the only problem about going to Formula E, though, is the Formula E season has already started, so there's not going to be any seats open.
True. But it's not uncommon that there are like some wild card entries or test driver seats that usually open around here and there.
Yeah.
A good example is Simona Di Silvestro, who's just been brought into the Porsche factory team. We'll get into that in a little bit. Now, without further ado, Formula One is in the books. Now, here's the last Formula 2 week of the season. It's the week 12 of 12, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. If you don't know F2, there's 2 races in a weekend. The feature race is usually about, I think it's 10 laps over the sprint race, right?
Yeah.
It's 10 laps more than the sprint race, which is ran the Sunday morning of the F1 race.
Yeah.
The sprint race is day 2 of the weekend. Yeah. So here's the feature race. So Seti Camara won over Matsushita, Zhu, Delatraz, and Elliott.
Yeah.
Your top 5. And the sprint race was Giotto Latifi, Sete Camara, Elliott, and Giuliano Alessi. Son of Jean Alessi got 5th there.
Yeah.
And the final standings for F2 in 2019, we have Nick DeVries, who clinched the championship almost 2 months ago, over Nicholas Latifi, Giotto, Sete Camara, Aitken, Matsushita, Zhu, Delarraz, Jordan King, and the late Anton Hubert. Yeah. And the final team's championship goes to Dom. They won it over UNI Virtuosi Racing. Art Grand Prix, Carlin, Campos Racing, Sauber Junior Team by Charu, MP Motorsports, BWT Arden, Prema Racing, and Trident.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you have it for Formula 2. Yeah. And now, Ronnie, it's time to get into your side of the story. We brought you on for a long time. We wanted a driver to get on this show, and we finally have you. So I'm going to start asking a few questions just by looking at your resume here. What got you into racing?
What got me into racing was my dad, because he was looking for a hobby, and my mom told him to find one since he was a full-time police officer, and he and his buddies found dirt track racing. So ever since that was the time I was born, every single weekend on Saturday night was at a dirt track somewhere, watching him race, and just fell in love with it, and just it's been like that ever since.
And now, so that said, you're at the dirt track and just watching your dad race. When was that time that said, "Hey, I want to be in that seat"?
About the time where I could start understanding the racing and how I was as like a little 2-3-year-old yelling at him, telling him he was supposed to go low instead of high and all that stuff.
That's very good. And of course, around 2011, you started racing at the Charlotte Shootout. You ran 2 races there. How did that deal come around?
Around 2011, and that was the year I was racing Bandoleros, and me and my parents, we pulled off 21 races in 23 weeks. And so throughout the summer, we just took a week-long vacation, which was pretty much a week long, which was a 14-day stretch where we ran about, I think, 8 races, to where we would leave home. We left home, I believe it was Wednesday morning, arrived Thursday morning in Atlanta, raced the State Thunder Series. Friday, just traveling, take an off day for vacation. Saturday, again, traveling, and we raced, I believe, Sunday we raced Rockingham at their little quarter-mile track they got. Then Monday, Tuesday, we were at Charlotte Motor Speedway running the shootout. Then back to next Thursday, after traveling Wednesday, we would be back at the Thursday Thunder in Atlanta. Then Saturday, we'd be back in Alabama at my home track, Sunny South Raceway in Grand Bay, Alabama, and where I was competing for the track championship at the time. Did that race, and Sunday morning back home, and it was fun as an 11-year-old, been doing all the races and stuff, and it's something I always want to do again. But it's racing, and money at the level I'm at now is kind of harder to do that.
Yeah, that's always a fun story to look back at. Say, "Hey, I was here, I did this," and then we see you ran a lot of different kinds of cars in 2014, including what I see is the 2014 Five Flag Speedway Track Championship. You finished 9th in that. Tell me about the track at Pensacola.
Five Flag Speedway, it's a very tough track. It's just every time you think you figure it out, it finds another way to pretty much bite you. Like, it eats up tires, it wears on your car, and when there's wrecks, there's absolutely nowhere to go. I've had a lot of great memories racing at Five Flags. The next year, 2015, I finished 5th in points, which got me in a lock-in for the Snowflake 100. And I've had lots of great memories there. I've raced against Sterling Marlin there, raced against Chase Elliott, everybody that you could probably name of in late model racing. I've gotten to race because I raced at that track.
We will get more into the Five Flag Speedway because we'll actually hold off on that a little bit because we will go into our race previews, which includes pretty much the lone race of the weekend, the Snowball Derby. But that's always a fun thing to look forward to, especially since, that's where most of the racing will take place at this weekend. It's always a fun event, usually cooler temperatures, and it's just the signal of the season, the holiday season about to begin. So with that said, you ran 2 races in Montgomery in 2016 with the best finish of 11th.
Yeah, the track in Montgomery, that was another fast track that literally no escape. And just there's lots of challenges that track, and just every single week it felt like there was 30 cars showing up for a weekly race, and something would happen to where it'd either be a long green flag run race or it'd be caution after caution after caution, which nobody likes. But just like one of my best races there, I wasn't even competing on the lead lap. It's just I got wrecked in someone missed a gear on a restart. I thought I avoided it, knocked out my steering, went in, thought we fixed it, had it break again, went back, and during a red flag, well, while we were still fixing it, just to get it back in the trailer, a red flag came out, and because of rain, so we were able to fix the car up more and got back out on track. And instead of finishing 26th and giving up on a day, we rallied all the way back to, I believe, 15th.
Yeah.
It's always a fun story when you come back from a struggle. Adversity is like a fun game, it's all about how you come back. And even when I played hockey, like when my team's down 2 or 3 goals, you just want to get back out there and just score more. And even when I'm playing a video game, like, I got this strategy. I think we've all played NASCAR 06 and tried to do things a little differently and end up winning the race somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always some fun stuff. Then, of course, like you mentioned, the Snowflake 100, you did race in that event and retired, finishing 28th.
Yeah.
And I see number 55 on your hat. Is that your personal favorite number?
Yeah, that's my personal number. It's ever since I started racing, my all-time favorite driver was Michael Waltrip. And at the time when I started racing go-karts, his number was 55. And my dad's racing team, that was called Roulette Racing, and everybody drove the number 20. And unfortunately, due to Hurricane Katrina, it wiped out a lot of our race cars and spread out everyone. So when my dad got a go-kart to get me into racing, he put number 20 on it. And how much I like NASCAR and how much I like Michael Waltrip, I said, Tony Stewart doesn't wear blue and yellow on his race car, so I want to be Mike. I want to be Mikey, and I got the 55, and that's been my number ever since, all the way up to late models.
I think we all have a personal favorite number. It's a great story because I played hockey. My favorite ice hockey player of all time is by far Jaromir Jagr, and that's when I always wear 68 ever since. And even when I played racing games, I would have number 68 and just translated from there. Because Justin, as you remember, when I show you my NASCAR Thunder 2004 stuff, I'd always have 199. But eventually I found out, that's Travis Pastrana's number because he ran 99 in his few Nationwide Series races. But that's always a fun thing. And we got some questions in the chat. SCB, he asked, hey, Ronnie, when are you racing in Arca again?
That's the hard questions. Just we've been looking for sponsorship everywhere we can go, and we've been struggling and still look. We're always still looking for it, and we have a potential deal with an Arca team that will get me 4 races this upcoming year to get me approval for a NASCAR truck license. So we're just, if we can find a sponsorship to be able to run those 4 races, just hopefully get to move up in a series and get to put my name out there.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Arca, I wanted to hold those races last because, most people know you just from the Arca series. It kind of builds you up on those questions there. So I see you did race in the Arca truck series with generous time with an 11th place finish driving a number 8 Chevrolet. What's it like driving an Arca truck?
The Arca trucks are actually really fun to drive, and it's just they have the slick tires, and it's almost like a pro truck but with a little bit smaller engine. And Jennertown was a really flat track, and I was having a great time that race, and didn't have that much practice, but I had to do quick adapting to the truck. Found myself all the way up to 5th at one point of the race, and it's just we had a mechanical failure, and that's what caused the race. But that was a race to get the proof to run Arca. And what they told my dad is from everywhere from how I handled the fans during the autograph sessions to how I handled talking to everyone and how I handled racing. I was perfect for Arca, and that's how I got approved.
Well, we got one more question here from Andrea Nolan saying, are you going to run the Pro Challenge again?
Andrew, have you still got my truck from Pro Challenge? Maybe I can. It's a Pro Challenge would be a fun part-time thing to come do at Sunny South, and because it's a really fun car to drive, and it's fun being a truck racing against cars because the series you can run a truck body or car body, but same chassis. So
they actually race on the same track at the same time.
yeah,
That's very interesting.
everything is pretty much the same between the trucks and the cars, just the body is different.
Yeah.
And I thought my truck always looked better than everyone else's. So, and it looked even better running up front a lot of the time.
Of course. All right, and I think we know like just racing is everything there is, and from like racing is a unique sport. You know, no two leagues are the same. No two kinds of cars are the same. They always change. There's always a mass variety of drivers that are influential and leave a big mark in the sport. But now you see yourself in Arca. We're 2015. You drive for the number 40 Dodge at Roger Carter at Mobile in Alabama. The 17th place finish. Now your Arca debut. I want to hear how that's like.
Just with how Mobile is the track, I was comfortable with the track because I won Rookie of the Year there, and so I was feeling comfortable to get in the car. Practice rained out, so I had zero practice. The only practice I had was the testing laps, and that wasn't even the car I was racing. That was the Daytona car they brought out for the test just to get a few laps in, which was even harder to drive. So I had a lot of nerves, and kind of like the scene out of Days of Thunder where you see Tom Cruise walking down pit road and you got the music in the background.
Yes.
Walking past the cars that they were lined up to go walk to my car, get ready for the race. I felt like I was in a movie with all the nerves in the world, and it was a really fun experience. Wish could have done a lot of things better that race. It's only so much.
The first to everything.
Yeah. We learned a lot of things that day about teams and stuff in Arca and how to handle everything better. But like I said, just got to be a first to everything. And at the home track where I had so many of my friends and their families come by to see me race for the first time that race and cheer me on, to where we had a whole section of the crowd in blue for me. So it was a really great experience.
I know that kind of reminds me of some of the hockey games I played, you know, especially the first game of the season. You got nerves still, you got these new teammates, and you just get out there and hope for the best. It's a good feeling. Let's see, 2016, you unfortunately did not start a Salem race for Bobby Hamilton Jr. Now, how did you and BH Jr. work together? How'd that come along?
Well, for the Mobile race with Roger Carter, Bobby Hamilton was actually my teammate for that race, running the second Roger Carter car.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that's how we made a connection with him. So after that season, he started up his own team, and we had also just acquired a really good sponsor with the late model. And with the money that they gave us for late model, we also were able to put that in the Arca and try to get what was hopefully going to be 2 races or 3 races in on the short tracks. But just unfortunately things happened at Salem, and it was an honor to work with him and learn from one of the guys that actually been up there in NASCAR. So,
because I remember Bobby Hamilton Jr. and I was old enough to watch very briefly of Bobby Hamilton during the Truck Series championship he won. Unfortunately, passed away just 3 years later in 2007. But yeah, I'm sure that's always a good feeling just to work with someone in that kind of level. And then, of course, Daytona. That was when I first really knew who you were. I saw Ronnie Osmer, that yellow 99 car, and it kind of had like that nice standout paint scheme. Does that make sense? Started in the back. Okay, you're probably going to log some laps, right? But unfortunately, you retired with the 39th place finish.
What an engine.
Driving for the, Thomas Brader team. What was that like?
Well, again, Daytona was it was almost more surreal than the first Arca start at Mobile. Because getting this, I was finally going to get to say I was going to race Daytona, which is any race car driver's dream to do. no matter where you finish, where you start. That's the ultimate dream. And just unfortunately, we just didn't have the sponsorship money to put in to get a really good idea for the car and stuff. Like, no, Mr. Prater, Mr. Tommy Prater, and Moose Prater, we became really good friends with them through the years going to the Arca races and stuff, and we were at every single Arca race at Mobile from 2012 to when I raced in 2014, and we became really good friends with them. The original deal with them was as a birthday present. My dad got deal with him just for me to test at Daytona when I turned 18, and we did so well at the test that he said, and we only had 1 month, and said, pull together $20,000, you'll get to race Daytona. We were just barely able to scrap the money together, and the car we had, it wasn't going to be prepared to be competitive enough. It was just for logging laps. It had the older Arca engine, not the Elmore, so we were just there to log laps, have a good time, enjoy the moment, and just unfortunately a piece of bumper decided to go through the engine and poof.
Yeah.
So like it's like on my side of the story, playing at the BB&T Center, which is home of the Florida Panthers, and each high school hockey game was like kind of like Daytona for you guys, and just going out there in an NHL arena, it's like, wow, this is like boom, confirmed.
Yeah.
I am where I belong. I'm sure you had that feeling, right? Just that sense of belongingness.
Yeah, I had that sense of belonging. I felt like I could do it, and now I'm just really hoping for that second chance now to do even better.
And that's where I would like to ask, what's your 2020 plans look like?
Right now, the 2020 plans are really up in the air right now, depending on sponsorship and stuff. Like, I've been running a dirt car recently called a Sharp Chassis Mini Late Model, and I've been able to doing dirt races pretty much all of 2019, except for the summer where I got to race my late model again back in Mobile. So we're up in the air right now. We're either gonna move back the asphalt and run more asphalt races, or we're just gonna keep looking for sponsors, hoping to be able to get an Arca ride for this upcoming season, and at least get a few starts in, hopefully.
Now, I've been doing all the asking. Justin, I want to lend this to you. What questions do you have for Ronnie Osmer?
Let me think. Oh, how different is it from a late model to like a Arca car? There should be like differences, like with weight and how it handles usually.
Yeah, there's a major difference. The late models have a lot bigger tire than the Arca cars actually do, and the Arca cars are also a lot heavier, so they slide around a lot easier. So it's a lot harder to adjust to without practice. But they're all really fun to drive and everything. Like at Salem, before I had another mechanical failure during practice that resulted in the car getting crashed. I still learning the track. I was in 23rd, getting loose and everything, having fun on the track, because Salem is like the Arca version of Darlington.
Yeah.
It's that old school track that you slip and slide and have a good time on. And I was feeling confident in the car at that track and was just having a good time. If it was a late model, I would have been sticking to the track a lot better, flying around it, which probably would have made it a little less fun, because sliding around is always the best way to race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Salem, that's always a fun Arca race to watch. I try to watch as much Arca races as possible, and Salem's like that one race, like, I want to keep an extra eye out there because there's always a fun moment or some exciting finish there.
Yeah, there's always something going on at Salem. Like, we've seen cars like kind of hit the wall sometimes because
Is that a concrete asphalt.
Yeah, most people run the high side. A lot of people run the high lane. I've seen a couple crashes of people going way too high, like near the end of the race.
Hit the wally pancake a few times and then
Well, at
cuts a
least,
tire.
yeah, I've seen people like on the last lap trying to make moves for the win, like including Chandler Smith going for the win versus Christian Eckes' teammate, cuts a tire, finishes 10th on the final lap.
Yeah, Salem is such an old track surface where it's also rough on tires there, and it's a really confusing track to learn. To where I was able to ask Will Kemmel for help for that race, and he gave me some few tips. To where in 1 and 2 you're actually running the middle of the track, and 3 and 4 you're right up against the wall.
It's very cool. So I'm looking now. I have another great question. Many people don't really ask this, but I want to be the one that breaks the ice here. The difference between driving the composite body Gen 6 looking Arca car versus the old body.
Yeah.
What are the differences, similarities?
I really don't think I have a good enough stat line to present that, because the 2 short track races I did were with the steel body, and then my super speedway debut was with the composite body. So I don't really know yet the difference. But so I'm hoping to answer that now next year. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I think also this get a few more questions. I'll let you have a few more, Justin, before we get into the Snowball Derby preview. Justin, what else do you have?
I'm just looking here. I also found out that in 2014 at the Snowflake 100, I heard you didn't qualify. Like, that is really a shame, but I know Five Flags could be a tough track, but how hard is it when you have so many entries for one race? It's really, how hard is it to, like, you have pressure to, like, make the race?
there's a lot of pressure. We didn't go in thinking we were going to make it in because of all the entry stuff. Because the first year I go to do it, they decide to make it one of the biggest prize purses of the year, and the infield was so packed. The Walmart parking lot on Black Friday would look small.
Wow.
It's just everybody. If you wanted to get your car out the trailer, you had to ask the 2 people next to you to move their car so you could get yours out. And it was so crowded, and I had confidence going into the race, considering I raced there the entire year versus a lot of guys that were running hundreds of practice laps that week because they didn't race there all year. So I already knew how the track was, and I'm always the guy that struggles at qualifying. I can admit to that. I'm a racer, not a qualifier. And in the B main to get into the Snowflake, I started in the back because of the bad qualifying. Was moving all the way up to where I was 9th place, around 10 to go, and then there was a spin. I checked up, guy behind me didn't check up, and I got wrecked. It was just a lot of bad things that happened. But it was a lot of learning experiences that we took into the next year and had a really good time.
So yeah, with that said, let's get into our race preview. Our only race that we're going to get into for the race weekend, because there's just nothing at this time of the year, is the 2019 edition of the Snowball Derby in Pensacola, Florida at the Five Flags Speedway. So the first race was in 1968, won by Wayne Niedigan, and last year's victor was Noah Gragson. And Rich Bickle holds the most wins category with 5, while Wayne Niedigan, Dickie Davis, Freddie Fryer, Gary Santamont, Bobby Gill, Audrey Grill, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and Eric Jones all have 2 wins apiece. The entry list is pretty huge.
Yep. It is.
And you guys actually put in the chat for you guys. We have the super late models and pro late models that are in this event. There's a lot of possibilities here. I'm just looking right now, and the guys that interest me, for some factors, we have Derek Krause, For example, Corey LaJoy, even as someone like Bubba Pollard. Of course, Bubba Pollard's the first guy that comes to mind when you think of a race like this.
We also got like Harrison Byrne, he's racing. Carson Hosvar, Taylor Gray, Casey Roderick.
Casey Roderick's another highly skilled driver.
Mason Mingus, the Winchester, I forget the name of the race. Won one of the races, one of the late model races.
Winchester 400?
Yeah, he won that race. We also have Rich Bickle is racing.
The 5-time winner, winningest driver of the Snowball Derby.
Derek Thorne, Chandler Smith, Stephen Nasse, David Gillen.
2007 Daytona 500 pole sitter. How about Ty Majeski, throwing Jordan Anderson, Corey Heim. This is a competitive race, guys.
We also have Josh Berry, the winner of the Martinsville late model race where he led every lap.
Perfect race.
She's in the race.
The Valley Star Credit Union 300.
Caden Honeycutt, Jordan Anderson. We have a big entry list.
Yeah, there's a lot of SAC names on the list, and well, I think my personal favorite I'll be cheering for is my buddy Connor Okrezik, who did beat Kyle Busch earlier this year, and I think he's definitely going to be highly motivated to have a really good, strong run this year, because I believe he was in the running last year at the end of it and just fell off at the end.
Last year, that was when Noah Gragson finished his tenure with Toyota, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Kyle Busch Motorsports with a win, and then departed to where he's now at Junior Motorsports.
Yeah.
So he basically finished his tenure on top. But I think you could definitely back that up if someone else, like, you can even throw in a Jeff Choquette there. I know Jeff Choquette has his great runs. I think he's sort of the underdog here from what I've seen in past prior knowledge of watching these kinds of races. But another good pick is Caden Honeycutt. He's ran some Arca races in 2019. He's driving the number 104 car from Willow Park, Texas. There's a lot of stuff to be excited about if you're pulling for a guy like Caden Honeycutt. Now on the pro late models, let's look at the pro late models. We got Kyle Plott,
Jeff Choquette, Carson Hosvar, Connor Okrezik, Casey Roderick, Brandon Oakley, Mason Diaz,
Bubba Pollard. It just gets more competitive right there. Bubba Pollard, Stephen Nasse.
Jake Griffin,
who usually does some dirt races.
Yeah, including his fourth place truck run at Eldora in 2016.
Former Cup Series veteran Mike Garvey.
Yep.
And Audrey Grill.
Derek Griffin.
Look, we got Derek Thorne and Perry Patino, who's also part of the 2020 class for the Drive for Diversity program.
Stephen Nasse. He's also racing.
Maybe you should treat his pick a little bit nicer this year. Who knows?
Like last year.
But yeah, it's going to be fun. I know. I mean, we're only 30 minutes in the podcast, so we got a lot of stuff here covered. So, who are your picks for the Snowball Derby? I know the World Racing Media Championship is over, and by the way, shout out to Armani for winning the World Racing Media Championship. It's just fantasy picks. We do all kinds of predictions basically combined with NASCAR and all the top series there, Arca, F1, IMSA, IndyCar, WEC. Supercars. We're like 7 series and some crown jewel races of other divisions. All those combined. And I lost by 2 points in the fantasy championship. I was so close.
Well, I finished fourth, 55 points.
If I picked Lewis Hamilton,
yeah, you had to pick Vettel.
I would have won. I picked Vettel because I personally like him more. That's my favorite F1 driver.
For me, it's tough picking who's going to win the Snowball Derby. There's so many entries.
I'll make it easy. I'll say Chandler Smith. I've raced against him back in the Bandolero days and he's always been a really strong racer. And he was even strong when he came out in his own equipment. I think it was a few years back when I ran there too. So I think he's going to be really strong in the Kyle Busch equipment and make up for what happened in Nashville, and hopefully not have to race Casey again.
Yeah, and I remember he was also trying to catch Mason Mingus, which former truck driver, and he won that.
Chandler Smith's a very impressive driver, in my opinion. I feel like there's someone out there,
Yeah.
I compared him to Eric Jones a little bit because he made only 3 truck starts. In his first truck
4.
start, he could have won that race.
Yep. Which right now he has only 4 truck starts. He has all top 10s, 3 top 5s, like
And his Arca starts are just through the roof.
19 top 10s and 20 starts. Like
His first 3 races were poles too.
yeah, he won the pole.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, at age 15, his first pole. I'm like, okay. Which a lot of people are like,
Yeah, he's in the best equipment. So what?
and people
No. He fought for it.
Yeah, like his.
Yeah, Chandler's one of those few guys. I would say you put him in any car, he will run it till the wheels run off and fall off, and make a strongest run that car can actually do.
I think that's absolutely worthwhile. I want to pick him, but he's the easy pick. So I kind of feel like I'm cheating myself if I pick a guy like Chandler Smith. But and I know I would like to say Rich Bickle, but let's think about it. He's probably not in his prime anymore. So that's kind of have to rule him out here. But I look at a driver who hasn't really raced in quite a long time. Well, as far as I'm concerned, he owns a truck team. A very decent truck team, to say the least. He has a son. He's a pretty decent truck series driver. And he's also going to appear in this Snowball Derby. Riverside, California's David Gilliland.
And Joseph, by the way, Rich Bickle is 58, so I don't know.
They say sometimes age is just a number. I mean, you said you raced against Sterling Marlin.
Yeah, I've got to race Sterling Marlin. And the funny thing is, that was my dad's all-time favorite driver. So to say I beat Sterling, it always makes him laugh.
Okay, I got my pick. This driver, he's from Concord, North Carolina. He currently drives in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. He has a father that has 2 NASCAR Xfinity titles back to back. Corey LaJoie will win in his number 7 car.
You have good reason for that because Corey LaJoie was the 2012 champion of the NASCAR East Series.
Yep, he really did good, including the winning at
Bowman Gray.
Yep, that race, which was
that was really a dogfight on wheels. I actually remember that race.
Yeah, and Bubba Wallace was not happy with Brent Moffitt. Oh,
it was a pretty wild one. If you put any car out in Bowman Gray Stadium, I don't know if you raced there, but it's
no. The only way I'm racing there if I'm driving someone else's equipment. That's way too expensive to fix.
Yeah, I know Bowman Gray is not the most favorited by drivers.
Yeah, like we've seen like I remember I've seen literally Brandon Godovic and Ben Kennedy sliding through the infield grass for a position. They were really beating and banging, and it looked like LaJoie's
run each other over.
Like Corey LaJoie's car had barely any damage. There was no damage on his car.
There's no such thing as a clean car leaving Bowman Gray Stadium.
Like he just dominated that race. He led.
It makes Martinsville look like a 1.5 mile oval.
Led 118 laps. The other laps was led by Kyle Larson. And I remember Bubba and Brent Moffitt, and there was 4 different nationalities in that race, and Daniel Suarez actually crashed and landed on top of a guardrail.
I do remember that.
had a pit wall opening because of pit
Oh,
road.
yeah.
Because the pits are actually outside the track at
Yeah.
Bowman Gray.
Like he was literally on top of the guardrail on like lap 60 of 150.
But yeah, I think if you think Corey LaJoy is going to win, I mean, I could have also went with an easy pick and said Bubba Pollard, but he does own those short tracks for sure.
Yeah, it's just Bubba though with the Snowball is like it's almost like Dale Earnhardt with the 500. It's just that's his kryptonite, and I'm hoping one day he gets it because he definitely deserves it.
Yeah. That's something I didn't know. That Bubba Pollard never won the Snowball Derby. He's always that driver you just assume that already won it. But like Dale Earnhardt in the Daytona 500, it's been a little bit of a challenge for him to do.
Yeah.
I look down that list. I see guys like Chase Elliott, who was the youngest winner of the Snowball Derby. Was it 2011?
Yep, he won in 2011.
He saw his voice did not even change. I actually do remember that in his interview.
Also,
More or less, that was Chase Elliott during the Bill Elliott's son phase of his career.
I guess the first woman to win the Snowball Derby was 1994 with Tammy Jo Kirk. She won in 94. We also had Clay Rogers. He won in 2006. I also do remember 2010 where Johanna Long moved Landon Castle for the win.
A little controversial, but a popular win, especially since she is from Pensacola, Florida.
Oh yeah, trust me. When I raced against her in the Pro 8 models. I think my first year, and you could swear she was the Dale Jr. of Five Flag Speedways. Every time she was up front, even in qualifying, you'd hear the crowd screaming.
It's a hometown favorite for sure. Pensacola is not the biggest place in Florida.
Yeah.
So you really have that passion, And plus, the Snowball Derby is something that they hold to heart, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she is the last native of Pensacola, if not the only one, as I'm aware, to win the Snowball Derby.
Yeah, she's the last one because after her we had Chase Elliott, Eric Jones 2 years in a row, then John Hunter Nemechek, where his father Joe is from Florida, but from Lakeland, Florida. Chase Elliott won it again 2015. Eckes won it in 2016. Then Kyle Busch won it again 2017. And Noah Gragson won it last year.
Remember Kyle Busch? I forgot who he was. He was chasing down someone for a good period of time. I think it was Bubba Pollard, the 2017 Snowball Derby. But he really worked hard to get that win. And Kyle Busch won it. It's going to be 10 years since his first win at the Snowball Derby. I remember 2009. It was a very cold night, as far as I remember. But you see other guys that have won here in the past, such as Pete Hamilton, Donnie Allison, Darrell Waltrip, and Ted Musgrave, 2005 Truck Series champion. Dave Maynard III. I believe you and Dave Maynard III share the same racetrack in that 2018 Arca race at Daytona.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we shared that same track. We ran at Mobile together in separate series and in late models. He's always someone that's well respected around Mobile, and it was nice to say it was another familiar face to be around at the track.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that Dave Maynard III. If you saw the 2019 Arca race at Daytona, he was actually in the lead pack for most of the race.
Yep.
Yeah.
You give him credit. He's like 60.
He's born in 1955. He's 64.
Wow. Give the guy some credit. You see in the comment section, Jordan Anderson, always a good favorite to win the Snowball Derby.
Yep, and also he owns his own NASCAR Truck Series team, which I'm sometimes impressed how he does with his own equipment in the Truck Series. And he also helps Timmy Hill's number 56 truck building those trucks.
They have a good story.
Like, he builds Timmy Hill's race trucks out of his shop. And they bring it to the track, but Timmy Hill's the owner. Like, we've seen those trucks, like, both those trucks do good. Like,
and they got a top 5 at Martinsville after that chaotic race.
Yeah, with Timmy Hill.
and having to
Yep.
be disappointed if you were watching the race live on TV. You got a blue screen,
Yep.
not the actual finish.
But at least I remember at
Oh,
Charlotte.
and then college football too.
but
So
remember-
what about that victory lane interview?
but
Todd
remember
Gilliland, sorry.
But remember Charlotte this year's truck race at Charlotte, which was interesting. People were so happy. People were like, "No, Kyle Busch," about Kyle Busch winning, but people didn't know how Brendan Poole, driving for On Point Motorsports, had so many issues with his truck. He had broken track bars, issues like that. He rallied to finish second in his truck, which is not competitive. Which I'm
So
like,
this guy's fighting his own truck.
yeah, he was fighting his own truck and wheeled it to second place finish at Charlotte. Not Daytona or Talladega. You're talking about Charlotte, which is quite
Yeah, a track where you need perfect rhythm, if anything, to keep the lap times up and stay out front without dropping back.
Yeah.
So that's a great story. They were on point, living up to their team's name. But so I think we got a lot of things covered. Let's get into the week's headlines before we go off air. I know we're not even in an hour yet. This could be our shortest podcast ever, but it's going to be like that for probably the next month and a half. So 2021 in the NASCAR Cup Series, there's a lot of hinting going on. We know there's a new car. The schedule for 2020 will not match 2021, as many people have thrown out there in the rumors. But this is the first time that NASCAR is actually going to hint at the use of street circuits for 2021. How's that going to work?
I think it just depends on which street circuit that they use. Like, if they go to like Long Beach, I honestly don't think that'll be that good of a race because the Indy cars, they don't beat and bang, but they struggle mightily there. And Detroit, they had the Pinty's guys run there.
Toronto, Penny's run Toronto, and what's that track in Quebec? I'm trying to find it. Oh, Trois-Rivières.
Yeah, they run there, but like NASCAR stock cars, the problem is it depends how wide the track is.
Yeah, no two street circuits are the same.
Because
it's not Monaco. There's only one Monaco. You can only compare that.
Yeah. It's not like Macau.
No. Macau's another story.
Yeah, stock cars are not small. They're like more big. Like the bodies are so big that usually you see 2-3 wide, but at a street circuit, I don't think 2-3 wide would work with those stock cars.
Now, on a counter argument here, this could work because NASCAR or OSCAR, which was the Australian NASCAR back in the 90s, they raced, as support races for the Supercars, and of course, you guys know one of the races include Surfers Paradise. I think Surfers Paradise might be a good race just to do an exhibition cup race or something like that. Maybe on the same weekend as the Gold Coast 600. Could that be something? Who knows? It could always be something you want to throw out there.
Yeah, I think my big thing with the street races, if they throw it in to 2021, make it an exhibition race.
Yeah,
don't be afraid to have exhibition races. That's my opinion.
Like they could probably do maybe something interesting, add it to Daytona Speed Weeks, and because that's a big time of the year and lots of streets and stuff and around Daytona where you can test it out and just see how they race around there.
I know my mind's going to kid mode because I'm thinking of Speedway Boulevard track from NASCAR's EA games and NASCAR 05 Chase for the Cup, which actually is like a circuit that involves I-95 around the Daytona Speedway and Speedway Boulevard itself. But there's that. If the 2021, sorry to cut you off, if the 2021 Grand Prix of Miami comes to fruition, NASCAR should share an exhibition race with Formula One there. Think about it.
Definitely. That'll definitely be a good race.
So, let me see what else we have in the headlines. Richie Stanaway, who drove for Gary Rogers Motorsport, has announced retirement from Supercars racing at a young age of 28 years old. In endurance racing, Aston Martin has brought their GT3 program back to North America in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in the GT Daytona class. So expect to see their return. Nicholas Latifi has been confirmed to replace Robert Kubica in Formula One for Williams. Quinn Houff will join the Starcom Cup Series team in the 2020 season, full-time in the 00 car.
Yep.
And then some controversy took place after Homestead, which actually started floating around a week or so after the race finished. Rick Ware Racing, Premium Motorsports, and Spire Motorsports all fined 50 points after the Homestead incident race manipulation controversy, as well as the three teams were fined $50,000 each in addition to the penalties. Guys, you can look that up yourselves.
Also,
it's pretty much self-explanatory.
I heard the story was actually Premium Motorsports. You know, they build the cars for Spire. They told Sorensen to Starn Park the 77. He didn't want to. So they Starn Park the 15 of Nemechek, which Nemechek did not like. And he was wondering why Ross was still on the track and the 27 multiple laps down because of issues. And then NASCAR figured out that Jay Robinson and even Rick Ware was doing the same thing. He noticed that Jay Robinson and Rick Ware Racing were basically manipulating the race, which they did not like. So that's why they penalized those three teams.
Mm. So, yeah, there you have that. Let's see. So, on to two wheels for a moment. Motocross legend Chad Reed announced 2020 will be his final season in competition. Let's see what else we have here.
I know that.
Oh, here's something interesting. Back to Supercars for a moment. Walkinshaw and Andretti United may bring BMWs into their team. They might run a BMW instead of Holden. And for the first time since last year, we might get a third-party manufacturer in Supercars. Now, when I say third-party, because traditionally it's just Holden and Ford racing in the Supercars. And then you'll get some other manufacturers coming in. Like recently, we saw Nissan finish their Ultimo program this past season. And then 3 years ago, we had Volvo with the F60. 4 years ago with Mercedes in the E63 AMG. So it's not uncommon to see different manufacturers enter the Supercars, because at one point we had Volvo, Mercedes, Nissan joining Holden and Ford. So 5 different manufacturers for 2 seasons in 2014 and 15. I'd like to see that. You know, I'm the kind of guy who wants that kind of manufacturer accessibility for NASCAR. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing a BMW out there racing a Honda, you know, in the Cup Series one of these days. But that's always fun.
Yeah.
And knowing Michael Andretti, he's a doer. He likes to make things work.
I'm actually looking at this also. Today, JTG announced their lineup. Ryan Preece will move to the 37 with crew chief Trent Owens. Basically, they moved from the 47 to the 37, while Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will drive the 47 with crew chief Brian Patty, which he left Roush. Now that the position for Roush, which Luke Lambert's now the crew chief for Chris Buescher, the 17, and Yaley's been announced to run full time for Rick Ware. Last time he's run a full Cup season was 2008. Driving for Hall of Fame Racing, which has been a while. Today we got David Starr was confirmed back that Jimmy Means in the number 52. Let me see if there's any other.
Oh, this actually came out in this morning. This came out. The FIA World Endurance Championship race this season. Is it round 5? It was supposed to be Interlagos. In 6 hours of Sao Paulo. Justin, I know it's one of the races.
Yeah, it's the 6 hour Sao Paulo.
It's round 5.
Yep.
That race is no more.
Yep.
Due to track promoting difficulties and issues with the racetrack, they will remove the race from Interlagos and replace it with an event at Circuit of the Americas on February 1st,
Yep.
which is a week. I think it's Super Bowl weekend. It's the week after the 24 hours of Daytona.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's also on the same weekend as the 12 hours of Bathurst. The Liquid Moly Bathurst 12 hours. So that's always a fun race to watch too. I don't know. I feel like endurance racing is always like. You always have that. Yeah.
It was actually moved. It's not February 1st. It's February 23rd, a week after the Daytona 500. Now.
What race?
The 6 hours of Circuit of the Americas is now a week after the 500.
Oh, so they changed the date too.
So it's basically when the Cup Series are in Las Vegas.
Interesting.
Yep. But yeah, that's interesting because they go there and then like less than a month later, like actually a couple, like almost.
It makes sense because the Sebring race will be closer.
Yeah, March 20th, and then they go to Spa, and then it's Le Mans.
For your 8-race calendar.
Yep.
It's always fun. Also, if you haven't watched Ford versus Ferrari, you may want to look away for a little. I don't know if you guys seen it. Did you?
Yeah, I saw it.
I haven't yet seen it.
Okay, this movie is basically a biopic about the 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans. And it stars Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby, who is probably one of the biggest mechanics, biggest people of the car industry, especially the American car industry. And British driver Cam Miles was played by Christian Bale. And we saw a lot of different guys like Lee Iacocca was in the movie, of course, as Henry Ford II. Even appearances by Enzo Ferrari himself. Alex Gurney played his father, Dan Gurney. I thought that was really cool. But as a race fan, from a perspective of accuracy and legitimacy, how do you rank Ford versus Ferrari?
I'd go 10 out of 10.
I have to agree with you. I mean, while this movie had some flaws that didn't completely match history, the movie is a little bit here while history is here, but sometimes the movie and history are like here. And when they come together, good things really happen. I love the racing scenes. I thought they were going to half-ass the job of making the Circuit de la Sarthe something that it's not. But they made it look just like the old version of the track. The cars were great. Seeing the GT40 and all those beautiful machineries that we had back then. Now, with some good, there's always some bad. There's always some lower points that I thought they could have done better. And knowing how Hollywood does their movies on racing, I had a feeling this was going to happen. I saw in the trailer, it was pretty obvious in the trailer that one of the scenes involved them driving around Auto Club Speedway. That was supposed to resemble Daytona. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan on that. I felt like the Daytona scene should have taken place at Daytona, or I felt like that was more of an easy way out.
Because, like, Daytona does not... Auto Club does
There's
not...
only one Daytona.
Yeah, because, like,
Yeah.
you look at Auto Club, it's like... It's more bumpy, which is true. The banking is not like Daytona, which Daytona's 31 degrees. Auto Club is less than 31 degrees of banking, and it's... You could tell a difference of Auto Club Speedway, which has only about 14 degrees of banking. Less banking. Like, you see how bumpy it is at Auto Club compared to Daytona, which they recently paved in 2011. Daytona looks more smoother than Auto Club, and you could tell the difference.
And the banks are here, not here.
Yeah, you see
The tri-oval is like here, not like a long curve like Auto Club.
Yeah, Auto Club has literally 11 degrees of banking. It's not a tri-oval. It's literally just a front straightaway.
Yeah, but all in all, it was a great movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
like it's not like Martinsville's front straightaway.
The good outweighs the bad. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, by a lot. Yeah.
Also, I like the scene and I like how the movie started. I think the movie started great. The movie finished great. I was a little bit skeptical on the death scene of Ken Miles. It was a little bit off, but Riverside is not a track anymore, so they at least kind of made it look. And also, maybe if they did a little more explaining on that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they did a great job, and Ken's wife and his son were absolutely portrayed greatly. Carol Shelby, Matt Damon, spot on. We got a comment here from NASCAR fan 78 in the chat. He said, "What are your opinions on the new Tesla Cybertruck?"
Oh my. Oh, the Tesla Cybertruck.
Do I even have to say anything?
Well,
It's a joke.
well, I've heard of.
I like the idea. It's just not executed well.
I mean, are they trying to make another Pontiac Aztec or something?
Well, I don't know why. Harrison Burton, for a joke, said they should raise this in the truck series. Which that would not look the best. Like, literally, that would not look too good. Like, racing that in the truck series, because the truck series, we know it's mainly, we've seen only, like, gas, like, fuel.
And actual realistic body kits, chassis, bodies, engines.
Yeah, like you see.
You can't do that with that Tesla truck. I mean, unless you're playing Gran Turismo or something. See, that would be a nice unlockable car in a game like Forza or Gran Turismo. You just go out there and show it off to your friends in the lobby.
So interesting how there's only so far one Ford team possibly which will be competitive in the truck series, only Thor Sport.
And one of the drivers are looking to make history and tie Ron Hornaday with the most championships of all time with 4, that being Matt Crafton. He's also trying to defend that title from this year and break a winless streak that dates back from Eldora at the 2017 Midsummer Classic. So it's been a pretty much a while.
That I'm just keep looking at like I keep seeing always these little teams racing, like CR7 Motorsports, which is owned by Cody Roba.
Owner driver.
Micah Fronto Motorsports. They're gonna enter a Daytona, they said.
Usually they come back around Eldora too.
Yeah. I remember last year they raced with Jake Griffin at Eldora, and I remember when Mike Marlar, first truck start ever at Eldora, he finishes 4th for Josh Rayone in that 33 truck, which was really impressive. Like, I didn't expect him from his first truck start.
The dirt experience won him over.
Yep. He also made one, like, paves, like, he made a start at Richmond for Carl Long, which
crashed on the first lap.
Yep. And I guess his late model car, his Outlaw late model dirt car, number 157. If you see a 157 in the dirt series of World of Outlaws, it's him. Yeah, because he's good in the dirt. I heard he has really good dirt stats, so. And there was the controversy with the marathon fuel.
Oh yeah, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, and he couldn't have that as sponsorship, and
yeah, because Sunoco's the official fuel of NASCAR, so you can't have competing brands.
Yep, I remember.
Say what you want about it. I'm personally wasn't the biggest fan of that call, to be honest, because like it was like you're not representing NASCAR with that, but are you supposed to if you're driving for them? See what I mean? Like. You're representing Marathon because that's representing you, the driver, personally. But you have to represent NASCAR in ways that they want you to. Like, on the little decals on the left side of the truck or car, you have like, Sunoco, you might have some Jags or like just like random sponsors.
Like, so interesting how.
Oh, here's another one. Gander Outdoors.
Yeah, they.
RV, you know the deal.
Yeah, and it's gonna be
Good
weird.
year. Like coming into the NASCARs with maybe a Firestone as a sponsor.
So far, I'm looking. There's so far 3 rookies in the trucks that are going for Rookie of the Year. Zane Smith, which only made 1 start so far in the trucks. Rafael Lessard from Canada, and Christian Eckes for Kyle Busch Motorsports.
And Lessard and Eckes will compete in the Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks. They want to redeem it after a
Yeah,
struggling 2019.
yeah.
So, final thoughts, guys. I know we're a little early here, but this will mark the end of the podcast. So, anything you guys want to say before we call it a night?
Well, first, I want to thank y'all for having me on. It's definitely been a fun time. We'll definitely do it again, hopefully. I will promote my children's book series, Racer Ronnie, on Amazon. We got 3 children's books, so make sure everyone go check them out.
It's really cool. Thank you for having. Thank you for bringing yourself out there. We're always looking for more guests. We have some great guests coming up soon, just like Ronnie himself in the near future. So keep your eye out there for Twitter and Instagram and all our social media platforms for those announcements. They should be coming out pretty soon for our next podcast next week, as we'll be covering the 2019 edition of the Snowball Derby and getting into some endurance racing, which will be the 8 Hours of Bahrain for that time being. Other than that, have a great weekend for you guys watching, or not watching, being in college and school, doing with finals. Keep working hard. I am myself. I know you are too, Ronnie. Just don't let down. This is the final home stretch. Like the last scheduled pit stop of the semester was Thanksgiving. Well, for us in America, but we just push hard to the end. So for all you guys watching, don't let off the gas. We're heading to the home stretch. Have a nice night.